Hey guys, welcome to the intro to the trainer video. In this video, all I'm going to do is go through all the different parts on your trainer, and I'm just going to kind of talk about some stuff that doesn't really get talked about throughout the class, but is always good knowledge to have. And when you get asked stuff and you need to know some terminology, this might be where it comes from. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through each part individually. Now, if you are working on a trainer that's in at the actual Tooele Tech lab, it's going to look a little bit different. It's going to be a lot bigger. It's going to have a table with it, things like that. Now, these are the portable trainers that go out to Windover or any other off-site area that we are going to be doing some training at. These they're the exact same. There's no real difference between the ones that you're working with here as opposed to the ones you're working off-site with. So don't feel like there's any difference between what you're doing. So if I teach you how to do something on here, but you're working in the Tooele Tech lab, no big deal. It should be identical. So I'm just going to quickly go through all the different parts. Now this is a double-sided trainer, so there will be somebody working on the opposite side of you, and their trainer should look identical except for one thing, and that is this male plug over here. This is going to be the plug that actually powers up both sides of our trainers. So you're going to plug in, if you have the side with the plug, it's just going to be in your way, I guess, or it's going to be there. The other side won't have one of these. It's just one extension cord to plug in two trainers. So this will be on one side. The next thing that you're going to notice is going to be this big gray box. This will be our knife switch, our lockout. A lot of things are going to happen here that are kind of behind the scenes, I guess. So let's go ahead and let's get a close-up view of that. So like I said, it's going to be our lockout. And when we go to lock it out, we're going to have this knife switch here. And this would be in the on position, while if we pushed it down, this would be in the off position. It's just labeled on and off right here. Now if we were going to lock it out, which you're going to be doing a lot in this class, we're going to be in the off position, and you can actually take your lock and slide it through this hole right here, and you can put it on. It's locked. Now there's no way for that thing to move up. So we're going to unlock it because I want to show you inside of this box really quickly. This little tab sometimes will need to be pressed down, or the door will actually just be pushed up a little bit, and that should open up this whole box for us to look at. Now up here in the top, this is literally just a switching mechanism. We're going to be running 120 volts to this. The whole trainer itself will only have 120 volts supplied to it. Now this switch here can probably handle significantly more. It can probably handle 600 volts or something like that. So this very heavy duty for what we need it to do for us. The main reason we have it is because we want that lockout on that handle. So what's going to happen is your power is going to come up from the bottom, and it's going to go around the outside, and then it's going to be plugged into the top. In the top here, it's also going to be split off, and that's what's going to go over to the other trainer, and it actually runs through the top of our trainer to get there. Now when you go ahead and you actually flip this thing down, it's going to switch the mechanism inside here, and it's going to connect the wires all the way through. What I've done is on the black wire, or the hot wire, I've connected a breaker in series with that hot wire. So there's no way that power is going to get out without going through one of these breakers. We're going to talk more about breakers as we get into this class a little bit, but what's going to happen is if there's too much current or too many amps running through it, it's actually going to pop this breaker and disconnect it. And then to reset it, all you're going to do is flip this switch, okay? You'll come up here and you'll see that it's green, and you'll have to go ahead and flip it over, and when it's red, that means it's connected and it's on. So from this switch, we're going to go down into our terminal blocks. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is I do not want you inside of this box very much. Something should have been, actually pop this breaker for you to need to get into this box. And usually that happens when you have like a direct ground or a direct short inside of your circuit that you may be building. So hopefully that doesn't happen too much. Let's go. Alright, so these little guys right here are going to be our terminal blocks. And how it works on this particular lab is we're going to have three different colored terminal blocks. This gray one could change, it could become a white one. We're still working on figuring that out right now. But we've tried to keep it kind of color coded. Notice your black wire or your hot has a black terminal block. Your ground is actually connected to what is a ground terminal block, and we're going to explain that in just a second. And then your white is going to a gray terminal block, or hopefully it'll be a white one in the future. Now I'd like to talk a little bit more about these terminal blocks. Now, what is a terminal block? Well, it's really just a way to connect electrical wires up to each other. It's really good if you need to, per se, hook up a sensor or something like that, and you want to be able to quickly take it out. Well, you could hook it through a terminal block. That way you're not constantly pulling a PLC out or something like that and changing a lot of wiring. So that's where these terminal blocks are kind of cool. This right here is a terminal block that your guys are going to be using a lot in your circuits. And all it is a distribution block. Literally, you're going to have one wire going into the top, and this green rail right here actually connects all the terminal blocks together. So we're going to go ahead and play around with that as we get into the class, and you're going to see what they really do. Now, these are just normal terminal blocks, while these green and yellow ones are actually a ground terminal block. The reason that these are different is because you cannot connect them up here like on our other terminal block. You can't connect them right here. You have to actually hook them to a rail, but they lock down to the rail. See this metal inside here? This actually locks down to our rail and grounds the whole rail. This is just so that way the whole box will be grounded. We want to try to make sure we have everything grounded in case of an accident or something like a hot wire would touch that rail. It would just go back to ground. No big deal. How you would actually go ahead and tighten these down would be the center screw right here is going to work this clamp. So make sure that you're using a ground terminal block if you're ever working with a ground or something like that. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the rest of the trainer. So the rest of the trainer is really just a panel with what they call Panduit or runway. This is what this stuff is. And then this is also called DIN rail. So let's talk about that runway a little bit. So this is just a piece of extra runway that I wanted to show you with. Now all it is it's just been mounted to the back plate. What happens is there is a cover and then there is an actual like runway or a basket. So the purpose of this stuff is when you have all of your components laid out on the board, you're going to run your wires through this runway, and that's what's going to keep it all neat and clean. In an electrical box, you never want to have just open wires or loose, nasty looking like bird's nest type wires. You want them all neat and clean inside of these runways. So, and you'll actually be graded on this throughout the class. So make sure that you are using these things. They're a little bit difficult to get the cover back on after you put your wires in, but it's going to take you a little time. But what I usually do is I usually put one side on, and then I kind of press up, and usually I start on one side and just slip them all in, just like that. So, like I said, it'll be a little bit difficult maybe the first few times, but after that, you're just going to take it away. The next thing is I got a little piece of DIN rail. Now I don't know what DIN rail stands for. I believe it is a German or something to do with the DIN standard, but there's a couple different types of DIN rail that you can use. The main purpose of DIN rail is just to mount components to the back panel of an electrical box. So we have big long rails. They're already mounted on there for you. So like I said, the purpose of the DIN rail is if you look at it, it's just literally has these kind of like notches off to the side. And what you can do is you can take a component. This is just a breaker, and we're going to be using a breaker here pretty quick. We're going to go ahead and put one side in, and then you're going to press it down, and it's going to click in on the other side. Now, I want you to notice that there is a latching mechanism on one side while the other one doesn't have that. So when you go ahead and you put it on, you want to make sure that you're pressing it into the latching mechanism. Now to take it off, there should be a little tab, and on this one you can kind of see this black tab. I don't know if it's very clear here. What you're going to do is you're going to take a flat tip screwdriver. You're going to go ahead and put it into that tab, just like so, and you're just going to press it up. And I'm sorry, I don't got enough hands here. We're going to press it up. Let me see if I can do it just like that, and it should just pull out of the way, and that's how you're going to take it off. Be very careful. A lot of my components get broken because people are just trying to rip them off. Now, another thing is you could rip this DIN rail right off the back panel if you're getting really forceful with it. Every component that pops onto the DIN rail has a way of being taken off very easily. This includes my distribution blocks. If you look at these distribution blocks, again, look, it can pop into the DIN rail. It's got the little latches going up to these sides. Notice the one side over here is a little bit bigger than the one over here. What you're going to do is you can take your screwdriver and you can put it on the end and you could pull it up. Oops. You pull it up, and that's how you would pop it off. Now these ones being all together like this, it might just be easier to go ahead and slide them off the end. Again, you can slide them off the end. This one's not a very good lab for being able to slide the components off the end, so just get used to using that unlatching mechanism, okay? Now, the whole lab itself should be grounded because we do have our grounding terminal block right here, and that's going to connect to this whole rail, and the whole rail connects to the back panel, and the back panel connects to the whole frame. So there should be a good amount of grounding. There is going to be some times where I have you actually go ahead and put in a grounding block or grounding terminal block just to make sure everything is ground, okay? So as far as this particular trainer goes, that's all you need to really know for right now. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start building onto it. We're going to start working with it here in just a little while. The only thing I do ask is to be very careful of the panduit here. This can easily get ripped off. It can easily get damaged. So be very, very gentle with this stuff, and just be careful when you're putting the covers on. If you're moving around the trainer itself, you don't want to be putting a lot of pressure on them because they will just, they'll pull right out of the bolts that we have holding them on, stuff like that. They're not really made to be on a movable trainer. They're usually inside of an electrical panel, but we're trying to simulate that and give you guys a nice open area to work on. Hopefully that kind of clears up everything you might have about the trainer itself. Just remember, you got your lockout, you got your terminal blocks, you got your panduit, you got your DIN rail. And that's all you really need to know for this very quick tutorial on this. So go ahead and continue on.